कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः।
So it is the kartritva, I do, and the bhoktritva, I enjoy. This both the constrictions, they go. When the kartritva and bhoktritva, they go, then man becomes a mighty performer, as Vasishtha Deva says in Yoga Vasishtha, that all his karmas dissolve. So he never thinks that I am doing this, and with that mind he can do much more than others. He becomes a mighty performer. Yoga Vasishtha says, Mahakarta. He becomes a mighty performer. So this discovery, I am saying it is the greatest discovery of human civilization, because it not only satisfies the inquiring intelligence by making it fulfilled, by removing its doubts about the world, about ourselves, about God, and about what not. No further doubts. Similarly, it is a great discovery because it fulfills man emotionally also. Because he finds he is flooded with joy when there is nothing of the world at all. Generally, we get the joy when we are in contact with something, some interaction, some worldly things. Either I am taking food, or I am seeing something, or I am reading something, or I am interacting with somebody. So there is always interaction. There is a two, there is many, there is multiplicity. Through contact only we are getting joy. But the real joy, the bliss as we say, it comes when we are not in touch with anything at all. The whole world is forgotten. The inner world of thoughts and intelligential analysis is also forgotten. When the soul alone remains, then we get flooded with the joy. So this joy is the other solution of our life, the emotional solution of our life, the emotional fulfillment of our life. So that is how the spiritual enquiry and spiritual pursuit leads us to the final fulfillment of our life, by making us intelligentially fulfilled, by removing all our doubts, and emotionally fulfilled by removing all our desires, removing all our craving for joy. It is like the river meeting the sea. It is becoming the sea, as Bhagavad Gita says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamaha yam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. He says, Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat. It is like the sea where all the waters from different rivers, different nalas and canals, they are flowing in. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham. The sea never overflows. It is always getting filled, and also the evaporation is taking place. It remains what it is. And in that, when the river comes with a clear, pure water, it does not specially invite the river or goes along the river to say that, oh, it's so pure water, let me have more of it. And when a drain comes with the filthy water to the sea never says that, no, 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 you are filthy, you cannot come. Remain away from him, or tries to run away from the filthy water. The sea accepts the dirty water as well as the pure water and all kinds of water with evenness. It accepts everything. And what happens to the water? Whatever waters entered the sea, they become the sea. They lose their special qualities, they lose their dirt, they lose their purity, the special purity or taste, and they all become the sea water. Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamahayam pravishanti sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. Like that, the knower, he remains like the sea. All the materials of enjoyment, they flow unto him because they become what they really are, flowing unto him. He never runs after the kama. So he says, na kama kami. He becomes apuriyamana machala pratishtham samudramaapaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamahayam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti. He attains peace, na kama kami. Not the people who are running after the desired objects. They will never become peaceful. One object is had, they will again run after another object. You may think that, oh, it's all about desirelessness. We are yet to become, we are young, it's not the time for us to become desireless. Well, you need not become desireless. Our Shastras, they speak about dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the four purusharthas. Why have they included the kama there? Because everybody will not become desireless right in his childhood. Some may become, they may take to this right in the beginning, but not all, not many. So for them this kama is there. But while pursuing the kama, know that this is not going to fulfill you. You can have money, you can have building, you can have children, you can have good food, good living, everything, but never make the mistake by thinking that it is going to fulfill me forever. If that idea is there, you go on fulfilling your rightful desires. That is why dharma is kept in the beginning. Dharma means the fundamental law of nature, which sustains nature, which sustains individual life. Dharma is dharma eva hatohanti dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. That dharma is such a fundamental law of nature. If you protect dharma, dharma will protect you. If you follow dharma, dharma will protect you. If you violate dharma, if you flout dharma, if you kill dharma, then dharma will kill you. Dharma eva hatohanti dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. That means if you flout the fundamental law of nature, disregard the fundamental law of nature, then we will be punished by nature. It is nature's law. So dharma cannot be optional. Dharma is the fundamental harmony of nature. When we are in tune with this harmony, when we are in tune with infinite, our life becomes easy, our life becomes like a river flowing unto the sea. So knowing the dharma, we have to earn artha, money or property. It is not flouting dharma. All these four purusharthas, the four to be attained in our life, they are all interlinked. First is dharma, knowing this code of righteousness, the code of eternal harmony or the infinite harmony or the fundamental harmony. Knowing the code of conduct, we have to earn money according to the dharma. Then that money will bring fulfillment, satisfaction to us. And following that dharma, we have to fulfill our rightful desires also. Kama comes then. With the money, we have to fulfill our desires. But fulfill only the rightful desires, which are according to the dharmas, not harming anybody, not hurting anybody. We have to fulfill the rightful desires following dharma. Then what will happen? Very soon we will outlive the desires. Generally what happens? Because we don't follow dharma in fulfilling our desires, the desires never leave us. We remain haunted by the desires. The ages pass, we become 80 years, 90 years, 100 years old. Even then the desires don't leave us. Because we have not followed dharma in our life. This is our fundamental code of conduct of our culture. If we learn dharma and if we earn according to the dharma and if we pursue the rightful desires according to the following the dharma, then soon we will outlive the desires and we will enter into the path of moksha, the fourth and the final purushartha, which will liberate us from all the bondages we are feeling. Whatever bondages we are feeling, we want to become good but we are not able to become good. We want to become free of all stress but we are not able to become freed of the stress. So all these bondages, constrictions, getting rid of all the bondages and constrictions and becoming sky-like, becoming like the space. So if we first understand dharma, then pursuing dharma we earn, and pursuing dharma, following dharma, we fulfill our rightful desires, then automatically our life will take us to the last and final step of liberation. This is the code, this is the dharma based on the fundamental core reality which our spirituality teaches us. The entire Hindu dharma is based on this core identity, the core reality, the eternal truth. Although the surface customs, practices, the superficial customs, practices, they will change from era to era. There will be changes in them. But they are all prescribed, keeping our eye on the eternal core in us. So that all the other practices, the daily practices which are different in different regions, which are different from time to time also, which are different as we grow in age also. But the final aim of all that is to lead us to that final core identity, lead us to our real identity. With that in our mind, keeping that as the cynosure, always keeping that in front, all other things of life are arranged. That is our traditional culture, that is the Hindu dharma. Nowadays, there is, not nowadays, it is right from the beginning. Our Kathopanishad says, Paranjikhani Vatrinat Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman Kaschid Dhiraha Pratyagatmanam Aikshat Avritta Chakshuhu Amritatvam Icchan Kaschid Dhiraha Pratyagatmanam Aikshat Avritta Chakshuhu Amritatvam Icchan. He says that Paranjikhani Vatrinat Swayambhuhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman. He says that we are, our indriyas, our sense organs are outgoing right from birth. That is not our fault. We are created like that by the Swayambhu, Brahma, or the Creator. The Creator has created our indriyas outgoing. And following the indriyas, our mind and intelligence and emotion, they are also always outgoing. Not knowing the central point, the central core from where they are going out. So our indriyas never look back, our mind never looks within, the intelligence never analyzes to go within. They are always running after outer things, outer things, outer things. But that is the way Creator has created us. We have no responsibility in that. The Creator has created us in that manner. But the Rishi cautions us, there is responsibility if we don't change this fate. He clearly points out, Pratyaga Atmanam Aikshat Kaschid Dhiraha. He is referring to the Dhiraha. Dhiraha means the wise. Actually this Dhiraha, Sanskrit word, has two vyutpattis, two etymological meaning. One is Dhyam Irayati iti Dhiraha. Irayati means churning, as we churn buttermilk, like that. Dhyam Irayati iti Dhiraha. Those who churn their intelligence is called Dhiraha. That is one definition. That means most of the time our intelligence remains non-functional. You will look into your own mind and intelligence. We don't think generally. We are more mentally idle than we are physically idle. Physical idleness is there. But more than that is the mental idleness, the intelligential idleness. Not mental, intelligential idleness. Because the mind goes on thinking in an idle manner. There are idle, when I say, it is linked to inertia. There are two kinds of inertia. One is static inertia, that when something is standing, unless you push it won't move. This is static inertia. Another is when something is rolling, suppose the wheel is rolling, unless you put a brake it will not stop. That is the dynamic inertia. So here also the mind, our body has got too much of static inertia. The intelligence has got static inertia, but the mind has got dynamic inertia. You cannot stop the mind easily. You try to stop your thoughts, it will not stop. It goes on thinking, but thinking in its own manner. It goes on rolling like a rolling wheel. It goes on rolling like a rolling wheel. So it is the dynamic inertia of the mind, and it is the static inertia of the body and static inertia of the intelligence that we are suffering from. So he says, Dhyam irayati iti dhiraha. A person whose intelligence is always thinking, it is innovative, it is not taking things as they are everywhere. It analyzes things, it tries to understand things. So such a person is called dhiraha. Similarly, there is another vyutpatti of the word dhiraha, that is, it is called dhyam rati iti dhiraha. Dhyam rati iti dhiraha. Rati means one whose intelligence is friendly to him. That is, suppose we take the first definition where the intelligence is very active, then also it can work in an unfriendly manner. Suppose a thief or a dacoit, his intelligence is very active. He is thinking how to avoid being caught. For that he is very clever, he might be very clever, he might be thinking always coming out with newer and newer solutions. So the intelligence is very active in his case, but the intelligence is not friendly to him. It is not taking him on the auspicious path, it is taking him towards destruction. So dhyam rati iti dhiraha means the intelligence is friendly to him. So the intelligence will have to be active as well as friendly. So here Kathopanishad says, Kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam aikshat. That dhiraha, he saw the pratyagatma. Pratyagatma means parak and pratyag. Parak means outward and pratyag means inward. That is, looking inward, he discovered the Atma within. How? Avritta chakshuhu. He says closing his eyes. Actually it is a figurative expression, it is not closing his eyes, but changing the focus of all the sense organs from outward to inward. You can close your eyes, but you cannot close your skin. You can close your ears to some extent, but you cannot close your skin. So it is not closing the eyes. It means shifting the focus of all the sense perception from outward to inward. Avritta chakshuhu amritatvamichan. Looking for what? Looking for immortality, because the whole world is full of changeful things. Everything is mortal here, everything is changeful. Is not anything permanent, is not anything immortal. Looking for that immortality, they looked into their own inside and they discovered. What did they discover? Pratyagatma. The Atma which is within. That Atma is defined in our scripture as Aham Pratyaya Gocharaha. One which is known by that Aham, that I-ness, that I am, that amness in us. Aham Pratyaya Gochara. This is a Pratyaya, that is a conviction. You cannot see the Atma by your senses. You cannot even know it by your mind. You don't have to apply mind. That you are, that is a pratyaya for you. It is a conviction with us that I am. So whatever, from where that conviction that I am, that amness come, that is called the Atma. That is what we call the I. In Kathopanishad, Yamaraja begins when he is satisfied with Nachiketa's quality. Nachiketa, as I said, was a 7-year-old boy who had come to Yamaraja. After testing him, that he has not come just like that abruptly out of some adventurism, but his seeking is real and true, and he is not attracted by anything in the world, in this world as well as in any other world also. When he was satisfied with Nachiketa's qualities and he was about to start this instructions on spiritual sadhana, which is known as Brahma Vidya. We generally refer to spiritual sadhana as Adhyatma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. There he starts with this shloka, Sarve Vedayat Padamamananti Tapamsi Sarvani Chayad Vadanti Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti tatte padam sangrahena bravimi om ityetad. He is saying that Om is the symbol of Brahma Vidya. This Om has been given a very important position in our scriptures. He says that this Om, which represents Brahma Vidya, that is the crux of everything, that is the essence of everything. He says, Sarve Veda Yat Padam Amananti. There are 4 Vedas. In each Vedas there are so many methods, so many prescriptions given. He says all the 4 Vedas, which constitute the entire gamut of our knowledge, they refer to some one goal. Sarve Veda Yat Padam Amananti. They are all indicating towards one goal. Tapamsi sarvani jayad vadanti. Even about the all kinds of austerities that they are speaking of, various kinds of austerities, they are also pointing to the same goal. Yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti. People practice celibacy and brahmacharya for what? Aiming at what goal? Yadichanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena bravimi. I will tell you the essence of that pada, of that ultimate attainment, of that ultimate goal. Om iti etad. Om iti etad. That is Om. That means Om represents Brahma Vidya, which is the essence of all the spiritual practices discussed in our literature, spiritual literature. Not only that, in Bhagavad Gita also, in the 8th chapter, Arjuna asks Krishna that what is the Adhyatma? Adhyatma means spirituality. Generally in English we call it spirituality. In Sanskrit it is called Adhyatma Vidya. Arjuna asks, what is Adhyatma? Krishna replies, Svabhavo Adhyatma Muchyate. That is, Swabhavaha is called Adhyatma. That is, he is defining spirituality as Swabhavaha. Swa means our own. Swabhavaha means the manifestation of our own self. That is called the Adhyatma Vidya. Now there are 2 kinds. One is that what our Swa, our self really is. To know that, that is Swabhavaha. Another Swabhavaha, which comes in the 18th chapter, is that self when it manifests through a certain body-mind personality. What is its most natural expression? I will try to make it more clear. Suppose any 2 personality, one guru and a shishya. Let us take for example very well-known example of Ramakrishna Deva and Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda. If you look at their swa, the realization of the self also, they are the same. Both have attained the same truth, they both have realized the same truth, they have known their own identity. But when that is coming into manifestation, in the manifest behavior, is not Vivekananda almost the opposite pole of Ramakrishna Deva? What was Ramakrishna Deva doing? What were his ways? How he was behaving? And what did Vivekananda do? If we consider the 2, they are extremely different, because that depends on the body-mind personality of Vivekananda and body-mind personality of Sri Ramakrishna Deva. So the manifestation also of the Swa, the manifestation, the natural manifestation of the self is also within that Adhyatma. It is the real essential nature of ourself and how it manifests through our body-mind personality. Normally, why we are differentiating it from our behavior? Because our Swabhava is always corrupted by our desires. Suppose somebody is given to art, but his parents want him to become an engineer or become an IT professional because there is more money in that or maybe more respect in that. His natural qualities are not allowed to flourish because of the desire for money or for desire for prestige or anything. He becomes unnatural in pursuing his profession. Like that, in every aspect of our behavior, if you look into our nature into our mind, we will find that we are not natural. Various extraneous conditions, various image we want to put about ourselves in front of others, various others for desires for fame, desires for prestige, they always change our behavior, they hinder our natural manifestation of our qualities. What spirituality does is that for a spiritual sadhana, it is a sadhana of becoming more and more natural, following his own qualities. Often people ask that if there is no desire, what is the motivation for work? In fact, we are not observant enough. What kind of activities are going on in nature? Compared to that, what are our activities? It is nothing. The moon is going around the earth is going around the sun. So many stars are getting born, so many stars are running into the black hole and getting destroyed. So many plants are growing over the earth. Even if you look at a plant, overnight a flower blossoms. How many cells, what kind of activity of the cells are there?